So you've bought SVGs, and now what? Well, let me walk you through all of the steps to get your SVGs from your Close to My Heart account. This is your shopping account. Right here where your name is, you're going to hit that little down arrow and you're going to go to Account. You're going to cross over, you're going to go right here into Digital Library. Click on that. And today I'm going to talk to you about the Cape Cod Digital Collection. Now, I've already purchased this collection, as you can see. We're going to hit right here the download button. When you hit the download button, it will take you to your PC. So this is a laptop, it's not a Mac. And you can see here that I've got my CTMH digital library, and I've got a whole bunch here that I've already downloaded. I'm going to download the Cape Cod Digital Collection right here in this folder. You will notice that this file is zipped. I usually keep them under Close to My Heart, Digital Library, and then I have a folder for each of the digital collection that I've purchased. So this is the one I've just purchased right here, Cape Cod. Then you can see right here, it opens a dialog box, and I'm going to go to Extract here in a file. And I'm going to go OK. So you can see that that didn't take long at all. Here is my new folder with all of the collection inside. These are all of the images. The first file you should take a peek at is this one right here. This is the PDF. I'm going to double click on that. You can see all of the great images. You have cards, several cards, individual images, and this really, really great layout that you can just drag into Design Space and start creating. So here we are in Cricut Design Space, and I've got a blank canvas here, and I want to start playing with my digital collection. Now you're going to go right here. Do you see this? It says upload. So we are going to upload our brand new digital collection. Now you can see here that I've done that already, but let me walk you through that process. What I normally do to help the process along is that I open two windows, one in Cricut Design Space and one where I've kept all of my digital SVGs or digital artwork. You can see that I've already done that here, but let's do it together just so that I can show you how easy it is to drag them into your Cricut Design Space. There's an upload button right here, and there's a second upload button right here, this green button right here, and we're going to click on that. And then you can either browse where you have your digital collection. So if you only had one window open, you would have to browse and go find it on your computer. Because I have two windows here, I can drag and drop. So I'm going to grab the umbrella and I'm going to drag it into Design Space. Now you can see that the image comes in as a cut image. It's ready to go. The one thing I highly recommend is that you actually name this collection, because when you want to find it later, it's going to be a lot easier. So I like to type right at the beginning here, Cape Cod umbrella, and I like to just make sure that I repeat that process for every image. The next thing you're going to do is upload. I'm not going to upload this image right now because I've already done that. So let's go back. So I want to show you what I do when I have a layout. So I'm going to pick the layout. I'm going to drag it in one more time, and you can see that the layout comes in as one image. Again, I'm going to add Cape Cod to my beach image right here. The reason why I like to add the Cape Cod here right at the beginning is that when I go back and I search, I will know that this is part of a collection. Most people will drag in all of their images in one sitting, so they should all kind of be together, but this way I know they're going to be together. The next thing you should do, especially for a layout or a card where you have a lot of little SVGs within the main one, is that I would start tagging everything. Here I see the word beach. I would tag the word beach, comma, and then day, comma, sun, comma, fence, comma, etc. I would go through all of the images that are within this layout and I would add tags, because later on when I start searching for images, maybe I would search for the word beach and I wouldn't necessarily think of going to this layout, but if I have it in a tag, it's going to show up. The next step is, how do you play with your SVGs? If you go into images and you look for, now let's look for beach, just for fun. And there's tons of images in Cricut Design Space. I'm going to look for uploads. And look at that. It comes up. It comes up because I actually tagged my layout with the word beach. Now you can also look at, let's see if we do Cape Cod. So if we look at Cape Cod, when we click upload, you can see here that all of the images that are part of that collection have come in. This one here is one as well. I'm not entirely sure why this came in, but for the most part, all of my images that I've uploaded and I've tagged Cape Cod, they're all coming in, and now I know that I can start playing with it. So when you look at images, click on upload and your images will come up. So let's add this one here to the canvas. This image right here is ready to cut. You can just go ahead and do it and it looks really, really nice. However, what if you want to personalize these? How would you go about that? Let's take a look on how we can change an SVG layout into something that is more our own. In this segment, I'd like to show you how you can actually change, although this is gorgeous, you can change this layout and make it your own. So I'm going to go through some of the steps that I took to go from this layout here, which is absolutely gorgeous, to this layout right here to make it a little bit more personal. And I'll explain to you why I made some of the changes. Most of the changes are done because of size and also color. A lot of the time we do want to modify the colors to suit our layout. So if we look at the top layout right here, let's concentrate on the left page. So the left page right here, you'll notice that I've removed these smaller icons right here and that I've changed this little piece of grass right here, and then I changed the colors and I enhanced my title. So let's go through the title together. You can see on this side panel that I have two groups. I've grouped them together so that makes it easier for me to find my little icons, as there's a lot of them. So I'm going to click on this one right here, and we're going to start talking about the changes on the left hand side. The first thing I want to talk to you about is how I change this word right here, beach. So I'm going to click on my group, and right here I find the word beach and the shadow piece if you want. I'm going to select both. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to duplicate this word. I'm going to set this to the side. Let's zoom in for a second. This is how the beach title will come in the original file. Now I want to make it a little prettier. I'm going to take the top layer, I'm going to move it over, and I'm going to delete this background piece. Just going to hit delete. I'm going to bring this back in the center for you, and I'm going to go right up here to offset. And my first offset is going to be 0.8. I'm going to apply, and then hit apply again, the offset always comes in as a black. So for here, I'm going to go into the color palette. I am using the color palette that is from the SVGs when they came in, and I'm going to use the dark toffee color. The other thing I want to change is the actual title right here. I want to make that into the dark blue color, which is Bluebird. So right now you can see that this title is really pretty, and we're going to make it even prettier. So I'm going to select both. I am going to group them together. I'm going to go back to offset, and this offset, I want it to be slightly bigger. So I'm going to go 0.11. I'm going to apply. So the first apply applies the size. The second apply applies it to the canvas. Again, the offset comes in black. I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to make this white. Now this looks really, really good, but I want to show you what happens to the white offset. I'm going to click on the white offset. I'm going to hit contour. And do you see what's going on here? There's a lot of little pieces that are still there. I'm going to hide all contours. The one I do want to keep is this one right here, just to give it a little bit of definition. So we're going to go back, and now I've got this little piece. So when I drag this back to my canvas or to my layout, definitely you have more definition right here, and it just makes it prettier. Make sure to group it together. You want to move this title in one go. Let's go back to my layout, and you can see that this is exactly the same. I didn't change the size of it, but I definitely changed the look of it, and I really, really like it. So this is one of the first changes that I did on the left-hand side. The second change was this little piece of grass right here. When I click on my layout, I can go through the grouping here, and I could go find my little piece of grass, which is right here, beach grass. And I can see here that it's the height, or the width, I should say. This is always width times height. I can see that that's at 2.2. Now, I did cut this at 2.2, and it's really, really small. Most of the changes that I did here were to make it easier to cut my project. So right here, if I click on my layout and I go into my group and I look for that same piece of grass, beach grass, and you can see here that there are a lot of pieces. You can see that the beach grass right here, I've done two things. I've changed the size and I've changed the color. Now remember, this one up here was 2.2. This is like 3.3. So I've increased this by about an inch. And I found that it made it much, much easier to cut in the long run. The other thing I did is I selected my image. I went to the color palette and I made it dark toffee. The other thing I did was change the colors for my sky. Currently, it comes in with Bluebird, dark side, light side. This is Lagoon, dark side, light side, and then Glacier, dark side, light side. And then here, the ocean or the water is in Periwinkle. I just found that there was a lot of colors going on. Although they're all in the same family, I changed them up a bit. I should say that when I started this process, I duplicated the entire layout, and I was referring back to the original one and changing it as I was moving along. The first thing I did, and the easiest way to change your sky, is to start right here at the top. So right here at the top, I'm introducing Capri, dark side, and light side. I'm still keeping the glacier color, but I've moved it into the sun rays. And I'm introducing here linen. And I just found that by bringing linen, so if you look up here, When you bring linen close to periwinkle, you get the sense that this is the sky and this is the ocean a little bit more. Definitely changing the colors are not necessary. It is a personal preference, but I can tell you that I liked it toned down a little bit more, and I did like that I introduced a more neutral color between the sky and the sea. These are all of the changes done to the left side. Now let's move along to the right side and let me explain to you why I made some of these changes. Again, I removed these small icons, and I also removed these pennants. Now I might bring them back. I'm not sure at this point, but I did remove them. Now the photo placement here, you've got 3x3s and a 6x4, and I can see why they've placed them in this way. I can look at the composition of this page and I can understand why these icons here are small. To me, this fence is really big on the other side, and then you have smaller icons, but those were done this way to accommodate this photo right here. One of the reasons why I wanted to change the size of these images here, I felt that this little seagull was a little bit big. When you look at the seagull and you look at this umbrella, I found that there was a little bit of a size discrepancy between the two. So let's take a look at that seagull. That seagull starts right here, and that's his little eye, and it's got 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces when it cuts. And you can see here that it's about 2 inches tall. And when you cut this on your Cricut machine, it's going to be a little bit difficult. So that was another reason why I wanted to change the size, but if I increase the size of my seagull, everything else has to change. So let's take a look at this layout right here. And let's take a look at that seagull. I increased that seagull by 2.5, not too big, but I wanted to keep it in proportion with the chair and the umbrella. And let's face it, when you go to the beach, you have more than one seagull. So I duplicated the little seagull. For the umbrella, I felt that the umbrella was really small against this seagull. So I wanted to change the size of the umbrella. Let's go find the umbrella here on the side panel. So the umbrella right here, and once I select it, I can move it. I've tilted the umbrella to mimic the same tilt as the chair, and this has been increased, and you can just drag it as big as you want or as small as you want. To me, this umbrella just looks a little bit more in proportion against the chair and the seagull. The other thing I did is I changed the colors. This is still the same dark blue, which is bluebird. I actually took the bluebird light side for the top of the umbrella, and then I brought the dark underneath because I figure it would be darker underneath because the sun is shining above. Very small changes. The chair is the same thing. Let's go find the chair. The chair comes in again in a group. You have that little cushion. These are the wood piece of your chair, and then you've got the canvas piece. These actually go on top. So again, I made this a little bit bigger, so you can see here that it's almost 4.5. It's 4.4. And the other thing I did is that I flipped the chair. If you go to the flip function right here and hit horizontal, see how it comes in this way? But I felt that it had a better composition when I flipped it towards the inside of my layout. I did not change the little sign right here. And you might think that I'm missing out on some photo opportunities because I've reduced the quantities of photo placement here on this layout. I'm simply going to add a flip-flap if I need to add more photos. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you about are these little flying birds right here in the sky. Now, these come in separate. So if you look here, these are separate little birds. And again, they are very, very small. So what I did to make it easier on myself when I'm cutting is that I actually attached them to this piece right here. The first thing you want to do if you're attaching these little birds to this strip of cardstock, you're going to ungroup your layout. So I'm going to hit ungroup because I need to be able to select that piece of cardstock if you want individually. And then I need to select all of those little birds that are flying in the sky. Once I have them all selected, I'm going to go right here to attach. And right now, they appear to be blue, but we know that when it starts to cut in Cricut Design Space, it's actually going to cut through, and my background is white. These guys here will come in as white. So I don't have to fuss with tiny little birds and gluing them here on top. They will be cut directly into that cardstock. I thought I was done with modifying this layout because one of the things I did, I removed these icons right here. So we've got a seashell, you've got a starfish, and you have a few here and there. And I think that primarily why I took them off my layout is because these were kind of scattered around the page. So let's zoom in here for a moment. So I've grabbed those images and I've clustered them together. I find that they have a better presence on the page by doing so. I also changed the color. I found that the seashells here are a little bland, and they're like that because they are cut at a small scale. I did go ahead and I brought in these images here, and this is the beauty of working with SVGs. Remember, we have to click on images, and then when you type Cape Cod, because we actually name them Cape Cod, click on upload, all of your images will come in. So I just wanted to quickly show you that. I brought in these 3 images right here, and I want to show you what you can actually do when they're small and you still want to keep the details. One thing you can do when you want the details in your images and you know you're going to cut them small is this very simple trick. Let me click on the little starfish. Let me click right here on that top layer. I'm going to go right here at the top, and it says a basic cut. Now I know that my Cricut is going to try and cut this, but it's going to be very small and it's probably not going to be pretty when it's done. So I'm going to click the down arrow and I'm going to hit score. Now it might look funny here because what it's going to do, it's going to score all of those pretty little images into the base piece. And then we'll have some details, and I think it's going to look really, really good. Once you've hit that top layer and you've hit score, you need to do one more thing, attach them together. You absolutely want these to stay together. So I'm going to do that for all of them. I'm going to pick the top layer. I'm going to pick score. I'm going to pick attach. We're going to do it here. I'm going to pick the top layer. I'm going to pick score and then attach. I know you're going to want to see how all of this turns out, so you're going to have to stick around until the end and I will show you the completed layout. I'm ready to cut my project right here, and you might notice that there's this little exclamation point. Let's talk about that for one quick second. I am going to ungroup my layout. The reason why you have that little exclamation point right here is because the Cricut cannot cut 12 by 12. It simply is not possible. The mat is not big enough. So by simply turning these off, you'll be able to cut your project. Let me turn them back on very quickly here and show you that if you go to make, it's going to tell you that your images are too large, something's wrong. There is nothing wrong. It's just that when the SVG comes in, it gives you a full layout so that you can appreciate the size of your layout before you cut it. So simply turn these 2 layers off. One thing that I like to do when I'm cutting my pieces, I don't cut the photo mats. So you just click on your photo mat and you, in this case here, they were grouped together with the actual photo size and the photo mat. So you've got 2 here. You don't need to cut those on your Cricut. So let's turn those off. And the last thing I'm going to turn off here is this larger piece. This doesn't need to be cut on my Cricut. It's coming in at 5.868, so it's a 6 by 11. I can completely cut this with a paper trimmer and not have as much wasted paper. Now that I've removed all of the pieces that I can cut manually, let's click on Make It. I want to go through this very quickly with you just to make it easier for you. Now you will see that you have all of your mats right here, but it may not be evident as to these 2 pieces. Are they the light side or the dark side? I refer back to this mat right here. I know that this mat right here, all of the images that are going to be cut are light side of linen in my case. So then I know I'm going to always look for this piece here because this is a straight piece on the right hand side. And then I can go back here and know that those 2 pieces are actually the dark color. Now, where it gets a little confusing because, you know, nothing is easy, right? This here is the dark side of Glacier. I know that because I've got a piece of Glacier here, and this is the light side. If you pay attention to the right-hand page, you will see that these pieces here gradually get bigger. This here is the Capri color. This one is quite easy to tell because we have the little birds that are going to cut out of it. So that is the dark side and this is the light side. As far as the rest, it's pretty self-explanatory. Now these pieces are very big and you can move them around to save some of the paper. I would highly recommend that you try and do that, but that's again entirely up to you. These ones here are a little tricky because they go over that 6-inch mark, and these guys here are really hard, like if you go into rotate. So you may be able to save some paper, definitely, and that's something that you can play with and try and save on your paper. So I'm just kind of showing you here that I would probably move them this way. And then when I cut this on the light side, I can actually use the bottom half here and cut the dark side. So enough with all of these cutting details and let's get into the project. Let's take a look at the cut layout. Now I've done a lot of pre-assembly only because this video is going to last forever, and I want to show you how those little seashells turned out with that score function. Let's take a look at them here together. I'm going to focus in for you. Aren't they pretty? These turned out better than I thought, and I'm really happy that I tried them out. Now, one of the things that I did ink distress a lot of the pieces using toffee, and I brought in this gorgeous stamp set here. That is from the Cape Cod card making collection. I brought in this image right here and this one, only because I was looking for something to dress up my pieces of wood, and it's perfect. Now you might have some sort of wood grain in your stash, but I found that this looked really great. Now let me show you how it looks with the fence. I hope you can see the details of that stamp. It's this one right here, and it just gives my otherwise flat piece of cardstock a lot of character. Same thing for my chair right here. I thought that it would be a lot of fun to give it a print on the fabric. And I just used this one right here. I stamped tone on tone, and it looks really pretty. My large umbrella, of course, had to match my chair. And this one here, I did second generation, but you can see that it instantly gives a lot of details to your cut pieces. These little seagulls here are super pretty, and I was able to cut them. Now you can see that they're big enough, but the details on them are super pretty. One last assembly tip that I would like to leave with you is I actually cut down a piece here. I believe it is, let's measure this very quickly. It's a 5 by 11. So I have a piece here. You can see it's a scratch piece. And I actually glued everything on this piece. I found that it made it a lot easier for me to kind of move around on my page. I know that I have a 1/2 inch border all around, so this made it a lot easier. And I did the same here. I just found that by backing all of these strips onto one piece, it made it a lot easier to move on my page. Let's take a look at the completed layout. I think you can agree that these SVGs are awesome and they can be totally modified and turned into something that is your very own. I love how this turned out, these little shells here with that function that we use, the score function. I think that it looks really, really good. Let's take a look right here, the umbrella, the chair, these cute little seagulls, and again, look at these shells. I really, really love the way all of this turned out. Well, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope that you've learned a few helpful tips to help you along when you design your own layouts. Have yourself a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.